welcome to another edition of Ask Dr. Dansinger with world-renowned diabetes reversal expert Dr. Michael Dansinger with diabetesreversalpartners.com. We have some great questions, a whole variety of questions that have come in over the past week in our padsupportgroup.org, Dr. Dansinger. We are going to be running I think, across a variety of different subjects, but everyone has a question that is personal to them. And that's what this is all about with these office hours. But if you want one-on-one time with Dr. Dansinger and you're in New York, New Hampshire, Virginia, Minnesota, where am I leaving out? Massachusetts, Florida, and you have Medicare and Medicare Advantage PPO plans, go to diabetesreversalpartners.com and inquire about coverage for weekly visits with Dr. Dansinger so he can customize a plan for you to help you with your artery health and diabetes reversal. But I want to jump right in, Dr. Dansinger, because I think we have 20 questions or even more. There's so many that have actually come in, and we have Becky that, wow, she has one after another here. She's first asking about honeycomb and honey, and is it beneficial to us?
The short answer is no. So, because honey is sugar, and there's a lot of fructose in honey, as well as glucose, so that raises blood sugar. And so there are some healthy things in honey. So there are some healthy compounds, but honey is, 99% sugar. And so no, I can't really say that it's as healthy as you might think it is. So that's the short answer. It's sugar, sugar, sugar. So be careful.
Okay, avocados. She eats a whole one every day. Is that good or bad?
I think it's good. So I recommend avocados. They're delicious. They have healthy fat in them. There's a lot of calories in avocados. So you don't eat unlimited amounts, but a half of a regular size avocado per day, or those smaller size ones, you can eat a whole one every day. So I have avocado almost every day in my salad. And so um, those are my guidelines. Great question.
You're going to love the phrasing of this one. Okay, why does cheese taste so fabulous to her, but it's the devil?
So,
And we've been seeing a lot lately about rennet and it being manufactured versus being natural. And if you are going to eat cheese, go European versus eating, the one from the US with the genetically modified rennet from Pfizer. So that's kind of where I think she's coming from.
well, yeah. So cheese. So let's compare cheese to people. People are a mix. No one's pure good or pure evil. We're all a mix, right? So cheese is one of these complicated foods that has a combination of healthy and unhealthy things all packaged together. It tastes delicious. So I wish we could say, oh, cheese is a great health food. Like in the same way that I wish I could be as enthusiastic about cheese as I just was about avocados. But cheese has a lot of unhealthy fat in it. It has the saturated fat palmitate, which is really bad for the arteries. And so mix that in with some healthy fats and some other, protein, and I'll give cheese about a C minus. So is it all bad? Is it an
Wow.
no?
Okay.
So what I do recommend is eating cheese in small amounts. Use it as a
Yeah.
healthy condiment, and use low-fat cheese. I think is less unhealthy, and so a little bit goes a long way. So it's a treat food.
I used to love eggplant parmesan. And then when I became anaphylactic to most dairy, I was so disappointed because I could no longer have the mozzarella. And when my dad and I went on a cruise over the holidays to honor my mom's memory, I they had to modify everything and they were having eggplant parmesan one night. And the chef actually did the most amazing eggplant parmesan, which was just adding so many more herbs and spices in it, and then just sprinkling the parmesan on top. And it was delicious. And now I've completely modified how I do eggplant parmesan at home with just a little bit of sprinkling. It's not as much about the cheese as it is about the herbs that you add in there and the flavor. Yum.
Absolutely. Great input.
Milk. Should we be drinking whole milk or low fat milk or no milk?
Yeah, low fat milk. I do recommend low fat milk. I do not recommend whole milk or cream. Um, I I just love the taste of whole milk. I grew up in Minnesota, dairy state, and I remember as a kid having whole milk pretty often.
Happy cows are in California.
Good point.
Just
So
saying.
milk is a lot like cheese, and it has protein in it and has calcium, and vitamin D is added. So milk isn't all bad, but the fat, dairy fat is a problem. So like I just said about cheese, it whole milk has that saturated dairy fat, that palmitate is bad for the arteries, it's bad for everything. It's unhealthy for the pancreas, and so low fat milk, skim milk, and um, so don't shy away from low fat milk necessarily, because I think that that's a healthy food.
Cereal, good or bad, none of it seems real anymore. And you saw Target just said it's not going to carry any cereals that have any sort of artificial colors in
Yeah.
them, but I'm not sure if that makes a difference for you.
So the main cereal's a problem. Really, there's almost no cereals that I can be enthusiastic about. Now, I'm a little bit biased and maybe a little extremist about it, because I will point out that mainstream nutrition experts will recommend high fiber breakfast cereals. So I'm concerned about the starch in there, and that the ratio of carbohydrate to fiber is a problem. So there's too much carbohydrate, not enough fiber. When you do eat cereal, look for a ratio of no more than 7 grams of carbohydrate for each gram of fiber. Cheerios, for example, meets that definition. So that's about the as close as I could. So look at the cereal, look at the grams of carbohydrate, look at the grams of fiber, and if there's more than 7 grams of carbohydrate to each gram of fiber, then it
Mhm.
gets a thumbs down from me. I would always recommend other things for breakfast, like eggs, egg whites, fruit, salad, vegetables. There's all sorts of breakfast things that you could eat that are better than cereal. So those are my.
Okay, so Becky has two more questions. One I'm going to save to the end because it's just it's a little bit of an element of a surprise in there. But so she was asking about baby food. She said, in starting kids out early, have you seen the junk in baby foods? It's just awful. If you want to start your kids out right, what do you do?
So it's a great question. It is a concern. And so baby food is just pureed fruits and vegetables usually. Plus they add other stuff to stabilizers, and maybe there's sugar in it. I can't recall. But baby food, I recommend making it at home. You just puree up fruits and vegetables and proteins, and that is better. It takes a little bit more work, but
Mhm.
um, do read the label of the baby food. Different brands, some are better than others. So what you're looking for, of course, is to start your baby off right with pure fruits and vegetables.
It's wonderful. A friend of mine who's brilliant started a baby food company called Yumi, and I loved their initial home delivery. But of course, that makes it tough to scale and make the most money. And so they decided to start packaging. But once you start packaging, you may try to do better than the other packaged products on the market, but you're still going to have that extra stuff that you just don't want to feed your baby.
For the most part, baby food is safe, but it's not optimal nutrition. So I
Yeah.
I have three children, they're all adults, but I remember what it was like as a busy parent. And especially, I don't have twins, but I can imagine there's some very busy parents who are overwhelmed with children. And so
Yeah.
baby food has a role, but whenever possible, use pureed, pure whole foods.
Okay. And actually, I missed one of hers. Red meat, she's been craving, because I thought this was interesting. She's been craving red meats since she started Ozempic, the GLP-1. She said she was never a meat eater, but now she literally craves it. She's like, I don't eat raw or red, or she only eats fully cooked meat, but isn't it still bad for you? And I know we've talked about the regenerative ranching and eating uh, grass fed, but also grass finish red meat products if you're going to choose them. But overall, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Kim, we're in agreement. And so I think beef can actually be a healthy food, especially when it comes from cows that are eating grass instead of grains. And you want them to have been eating grass all the way up until the end for them, grass finished. So what that does is produce a healthier fat profile. It doesn't mean that the beef fat is healthy because it's not, but it's just less unhealthy when the cows are eating grass instead of grain. So I think that the key with beef is how lean it is. And so wild game is another example of red meat that I think is healthy because it lives in the wild and its fat is healthier. But I would always favor lean poultry over red meat, and I would always favor fish over poultry. And so the best you can do is wild fish. And then I think farmed fish is better than farmed poultry, but wild game is better than all of that. And if you're eating beef, keep it lean. When you're on Ozempic or other type of GLP-1, people are at risk for losing muscle mass. And so eating protein, including lean red meat, I think is favorable. So what I worry about in people who are taking GLP-1 drugs is they start to gravitate towards starch, and be careful about that.
Okay. Jenny is asking, I do intermittent fasting. It helps her focus, on better foods. She says it helps her lose weight, um, and getting an alkaline diet. But what are your thoughts? Any guidance on intermittent fasting?
Yeah, great question. So intermittent fasting is becoming more and more commonplace and popular, and there's different definitions of what it is. In most of my patients who are practicing intermittent fasting, it simply means that the kitchen is closed at a certain time, let's call it 7 p.m., and doesn't open again until close to lunch. But it can mean different things to different people. What it means basically is closing the kitchen during a certain defined interval of time. And what that does is cause people to eat less food. And so for people who are getting benefits from intermittent fasting, it's mainly just because they're eating less unhealthy food and fewer calories and losing weight. And when you lose weight, it improves all the cardiovascular risk factors. And so intermittent fasting needs to be personalized. And so finding a routine that works for you, I do think is a good thing. Let's talk about the alkaline diet strategies. So there are certain foods that are the body turns acidic, and there are certain foods that the body turns alkaline, which is the opposite of acidic. I mean, it's basic. And so fruits and vegetables are less acidic, and so they're alkaline. And so an alkaline diet has lots of fruits and vegetables and steers away from starch and sugar, which the body turns to acid. Proteins are more on the acid side. And so on an alkaline diet, you would be eating moderate amounts of protein and lots of fruits and vegetables and whole foods. So an alkaline diet is generally healthy and favorable, not necessarily because it turns the body less acidic. You can't change the body's acidity by eating. So, because the body regulates the acidity in the blood, but what you can do is think about what are good reasons to eat more fruits and vegetables, and so the alkaline diet strategy really capitalizes on that concept.
Nancy says she's especially curious about omega 3s, fish, vitamin K, kale, broccoli, etc., and garlic. Some we get from our food. We also take supplements and vitamins. She's also read to consume these cautiously, whether it's natural or whether it's in the form of a supplement if you're on blood thinners. So she's just seeking guidance on how much is safe to consume while on blood thinners. And I know that it's different with every presentation of disease and they should ask their doctor, but what is your overall experience?
Yeah, let's start by saying it needs to be personalized according to your medical team. Having said that, there's a type of blood thinner called warfarin, also known as Coumadin, and that type of drug is affected by vitamin K in the diet, which comes from foods like spinach and kale and greens. And so, what Coumadin or warfarin is used less and less often, and so that's the main thing. If you're on warfarin or Coumadin, then you've got an issue and you should get personalized dietary advice. The other types of blood thinners, the more modern ones, they aren't sensitive to dietary things like that. And so you need to be careful really about supplements that are potential blood thinners, the main one being omega-3 fish oil supplements. So fish oil supplements can thin the blood. If you're on a blood thinner, for example, because you have a stent or atrial fibrillation or previous indication for blood thinners, then you need to ask your doctor about supplements like fish oil. But food's not really a problem for that.
Okay.
Clopidogrel would be the main, an example of a blood thinner that is not particularly sensitive to diet in the way that warfarin would be.
And Wanda is asking if it's okay to eat a banana in the morning, avocado in lunch, and how many blueberries do you suggest eating a day? Now, we've been having a lot of conversations about bananas because we're seeing a lot of influencers, a lot of Instagram and TikTok videos where, supposed experts are talking about really how bad a regular banana is, how they're genetically modified, how they're just all sugar. So everyone's very paranoid right now.
So I would say let's embrace bananas, and like I said before, many foods are a mix. So there's sugar in bananas, of course, and if you lined up all the different fruits, certain fruits would be less sugary than others. Bananas have more sugar than most fruits. So if you're concerned about sugary fruits, then you've got to worry about grapes and bananas and pineapples and mangoes probably. But on the other hand, bananas have a lot of favorable qualities. And so there's healthy things, vitamins and minerals and fiber in bananas. They're conveniently portioned. They taste delicious. So most of my patients, are have not been. I don't usually steer people away from, a couple bananas in a week. I eat a couple bananas in a week. So I'm much more concerned about starchy foods as a sugar load than I am about a banana. Having said that, if you're trying to figure out which fruits are best for you, it's probably going to be berries or citrus or stone fruits like peaches or nectarines. So great question.
Lots and lots of blueberries, but make sure you balance all of those
Right.
with protein, right?
And yes, that's true. Balance it with protein. Also, you asked about kind of the combination of avocados and bananas and berries. So um, I think it's fine. For people who have end-stage kidney disease, you might start to worry about all the potassium that you get from bananas and avocados in combination. So if you have stage 4 or stage 5 kidney disease, then that's a different story. But no, I think berries, bananas, avocados, that would make a delicious, it sounds great to me.
Okay, and D just says plant butter, question mark.
Say that again. Did you say plant butter?
Plant butter. I mean, I guess you could most, they're all the natural ones are somehow derived from a plant, ultimately, even some of the oil-based ones.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So these are non-dairy, butter alternatives that, um, so those are a mix. Use olive oil or avocado oil if you can instead of plant butters, because many plant butters, in order to be solid, have saturated fat in them. For example, from coconut or even palm. And so the melting point of the fat is really that how close to how soft is the plant butter is really the main determinant of how healthy or unhealthy it is. And so, yeah, I think they're mostly okay. Some of them, even like Benecol brand, for example, has plant sterols and plant stanols added to it, which are probably healthy for lowering cholesterol. So I'll give plant butters overall a grade between A minus and B minus, depending on how much saturated fat is in it.
okay. And Amber wants to know about the most heart healthy foods that you can eat with gastroparesis. We have quite a few patients with that.
Yeah, gastroparesis is when the stomach doesn't empty properly, usually because of nerve damage or surgery. So when it comes to the stomach emptying, um, different people are sensitive to different things. It usually has a lot to do with how well you chew the food, how big is the meal, and so many of my patients, I do work with patients who have gastroparesis, and they're able to eat most fruits and vegetables and most healthy proteins like fish, for example, when they're chewed up real nicely, when you have plenty of water with it, and when you're eating in small amounts. And so um, gastroparesis is a challenge no matter what you're eating, but I generally don't find that it interferes with healthy eating.
Hi. So Nancy's back here again. Any foods you mentioned clopidogrel, any foods that should not be eaten while taking clopidogrel?
No, it's fine. You can eat.
Grapefruit.
Oh yes, grapefruit. So I'm mainly concerned about grapefruit juice. So yes, I stand corrected about that. So grapefruit juice is a problem. It interferes with the activation of clopidogrel by the liver, and so the liver activates clopidogrel normally, but if you have grapefruit juice, it interferes. If you have half a grapefruit once a week, it's probably not a big deal. You can ask your doctor about that. It's a shame because grapefruit is delicious, and so it also interferes with most statin drugs. It's that it can increase the blood levels of the statins. So grapefruit is the main food to worry about, and it's grapefruit juice that I'm more concerned about because it's more concentrated. So yes, thank you.
I'm going to just combine a couple questions from Ernice and Lisa because they're about losing weight and exercising and thinking they're eating right, but still not able to lose weight. Lisa says that she is actually, in particular, losing some weight right now with keto. She's got to lose 10 more pounds, and then she wants to transfer over to a Mediterranean diet, but is keto okay, at least short term?
So the short answer is probably yes. Again, it needs when doing keto, it's the kind of thing you really want to check with your medical team and ideally do it, under supervision of someone who's experienced with it. Most people do very well with keto, which means you're keeping the carbs very low, and being strategic about the animal fat that you're eating. And then the keto diet, for example, the Atkins diet or many others like it, naturally transition to something that's more in the higher more moderate in carbohydrate. So there's even a low carb version of the Mediterranean diet, which focuses on non-starchy vegetables and low sugar fruits and lean proteins. And so I think it sounds good. Just double check with your doctor.
And I'm going to, do a little speed round here. We've already answered Susan's question about eggs. Definitely a yes on your thing. Vera wants to know about bread. Is there one bread that's better for you than any others?
So yeah, I wish I could get all excited about bread. If I had to pick a bread, I might pick Ezekiel bread because it's has a lot of fiber. It's made mostly of sprouted grains, and it'll spike your blood sugar, no doubt about that. But if you keep the amount small, it does have a lot of healthy things in there. There's the other type of breads. These are low carb breads, which are mainly fiber and won't spike your blood sugar so much. But again, these things are made in a factory. They're not they're not great. And so I would look, and also when you're eating bread, it's usually got stuff on it that you've put on there that's going to add calories. And so it's a surface or a vehicle for other high calorie foods. And so I've been concerned about bread for 25 years.
I know I do. I love avocado toast. Oh my goodness. Heidi wants to know if it's okay to eat meat every day, and she would love to hear about processed meats too. She doesn't really do them, but we're getting into the corned beef season and ham. She occasionally has pepperoni. What do you think?
So when you eat red meat, you want it to be as least processed as possible. The best would be, red meat from wild game, grass finished beef, buffalo. So those would be much better. The worst would be like pepperoni, salami, hot dogs, all those things. Those are terrible. And so those, for some people are special treat foods. And then lean ham is somewhere in between. So there's a lot of ham is usually 97% lean, and it's got a lot of salt in it and maybe nitrites or nitrates. And it's not the best, but a little bit goes a long way. And so try to eat, avoid red meats that are highly processed and go as natural as you can.
Okay, two more here. Top foods to quell inflammation.
Well, spinach, I think, is great. So that would be any kind of greens, I think, is right at the top. There's lots of vegetables that would probably get the silver medal. If you're eating protein, then I would give wild salmon the top. And so if you're going to make a meal that will quell inflammation, you want to have a lot of greens and piece of wild fish and put lots of herbs and seasonings on there, maybe turmeric, for example, and finish that off with half a cup of wild blueberries. And that is a meal for inflammation.
Okay, 30 seconds left here, and I got the doozy for you from Becky.
Okay.
She says, here's the real question. How in the world do we eat corn, chew it, and it still comes out whole? Wild stuff, I know, but inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, so a lot of people notice that when you eat corn, for example, corn on the cob, it comes out undigested. And, scientists have been working on this for 50 years, and we're no closer to an answer than 50 years ago. And so we don't know why. There's no scientific explanation for why you chew up corn and it comes out whole. So I'm just kidding about that. You're not chewing it as well as you think. So that's why.
Thanks so much, Dr. Dansinger. I thought you'd enjoy that one. If anyone wants more great content like this, make sure you subscribe to our channels, including Michael Dansinger, MD. That's a great YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel, subscribe to ours, and also make sure you visit diabetesreversalpartners.com. If you want to attend our weekly office hours, make sure you email info